Hi everybody, I'm here today with WILBOUR KEISECK from Vancouver, and we will start talking a little bit about the Berlin Congress. But before that, I would like WILBOUR to introduce himself. Hi WILBOUR, how are you?
Oh, I'm great. How are you doing?
Good, very good. So WILBOUR, can you do a short introduction about yourself?
Well, I'm Dr. Wilbur KEISECK from Vancouver, Canada, British Columbia. I do sports medicine, rehab medicine, and chiropractic work, and I've been involved in the field of biointegrity and fascia for quite a few years, and I'm still in the process of learning and getting more excited about the fields and the connection of the architectural design of the body. And there's so much to learn, and there's so much to share. And a very good segue we had to that was the International Fascia Congress in Berlin. It was a very, very informative event with very interesting speakers and information and scientific background in terms of fascia and the body and how things work and the new ways that we're looking at the body's architecture.
So was there like any kind of lecture or any new information that really got your attention in that Congress?
Well, I think there was many of the topics that were very interesting. I think the topic by Neil Thies in terms of talking about the interstitium and Melanie Schwartz's discussion, I think were very interesting insights into the makeup of our fascial architecture. And also, I think, which was one of the most powerful lectures there, was by Carla Stecco, in terms of her bringing her new work forward about the fasciocytes. And I think the way it was presented was very logical and made a lot of clinical sense in how we can sort of mesh the science with the clinical aspect of the work that we do. And so the information was very sort of diverse. At the same time, it was bringing together experts in the field, and you could see there's a lot of collaboration. There were a lot of interesting questions, with different, researchers asking questions to other researchers, and the audience also having very interesting questions, and which open up a lot of dialogue. And I think it's very powerful to have 800-900 people in an area all sort of searching and thinking along similar lines with different opinions about things and sharing the information. And having things like, for example, the Plastinanium exhibit was a very good addition to the Congress in terms of having people see some internal architecture and the work that went into putting this together. You have to give a lot of credit to the individuals involved, Sharkey and the people from the Plastinarium, and Robert Slipe, who was also the head, and Carla, and the others who were involved in doing that.
And in 3 years, the Congress will be in Montreal, right?
That's right. We're coming to Canada. I'm excited.
Sounds good.
We're going to have a big show.
I have a question for you. Paul Hodge, in his lecture, he was saying that it's possible to change pain or decrease pain if you invest or if you pay attention in motor control, and we can do that through exercise. So in the practical side, do you have any experience with that? I mean, decreasing and dealing with pain through exercise?
Well, yes, in clinical practice, that's what I do every day. And I totally agree with Paul. I remember in the low back pain conference back in Singapore, when Paul presented the first part of his work with Diane Lee, they were looking at something to do with pelvic exercise and function. And I remember asking him the question in reference in terms of, if you have atrophy of spinal, for example, for back pain, spinal muscles, is very, for me, very similar to the atrophy that would occur if someone has a knee injury. When someone has a knee injury, if they have a meniscal tear or they have an ACL tear, where they're not using that joint appropriately, you have atrophy, you have dysfunction of the joint. As a result, what happens is that the body no longer can use its complete tensegral capacity. So you basically, what you're doing, you're hanging off the ligaments. You lose that ability to functionally maintain the integrity of the system. And as a result, you're now putting way more stress in areas that are designed for stress, but not designed for this long-term stress. And there's where you have stress on the capsule of the joint, on the ligaments, and so forth. And then those are very pain sensitive, and they cause discomfort. If we can reverse that, if we can reverse the motor dysfunction in terms of building up proper coordination and strength and the proprioceptive sense of this complex, what I call the joint complex, you can reverse the pain pattern. Because if you think about it, pain, if you have pain in a joint, if you put pressure on a joint, if you take a joint to the extreme, say a flexion joint, and take it to the end of flexion, where you start stretching the ligaments, you're going to feel discomfort. And that's a normal joint. Well, with motor dysfunction and atrophy of your supporting elements, and not just muscle, but the myofascial system, that I describe it as the tensegral system, you will start putting stresses on the capsules, for example, in the back, on the facet joints. They are synovial joints. Just like your knee joint, they have a capsule, they have a meniscoid. They have nerves that are supplying these capsules. They have pain fibers, they have mechanoreceptors. When you start stressing these areas, you're going to cause a lot of pain, and you're going to cause discomfort, and you're going to cause stress. And if we can find a system to bypass that, if we can fix that, reignite the motor control so that we can take the stress off the capsule, take the stress off the ligaments or the surrounding mechanoreceptors in the area, we can control pain. Because a lot of pain is not necessarily caused by disc bulging and so forth. If we have a disc bulge or disc herniation pressing on a nerve, then you get sciatic type of pain and so forth. But a lot of people with back pain don't have sciatic type of pain. Mm-hmm. We know that. We know that a lot of the pain they're having is because of, they have this dull, low-grade back pain, but it's because of disuse. And I have taken patients and with back pain and put them in the proper posture to activate the deep control muscles of the back, and all of a sudden they say, "Oh, my pain is gone," because all of a sudden they're using the proper myofascial structures to maintain the proper posture to take the stress off the joints. So people get lazy, and what we have basically happening in the spine or in the architecture of the body, in the trunk and in the pelvis, is disuse atrophy. So we have fatigue sets in, and when you get tired, when muscles get tired, they lose the ability to do the proper support, or what we call tensegral support. And as a result of that, then all the stress goes into the joints and into the ligaments. This is why over time, with degeneration, and with continuous stressing of these joints, you see wear and tear in the joints. You start to see atrophy. You start to see bone spurs and all of these different things, osteophytes forming. That's because of abnormal stress on those structures. Bone responds to stress. I use that example. Bone responds to stress, just like, if you put a plant towards the light, it will grow towards the light. When you put stress on bone, it will respond. It will get thicker. It will grow into spurs. All of these things will happen. Mm-hmm. And this is from dysfunction. So the neurological outcome of some of this stuff is pain. And this is, so Paul's work is very on point in terms of, and very significant in terms of showing disuse atrophy can affect motor function. And if motor function is affected, where it becomes dysfunction, where coordination is not possible, where you don't have the strength, you don't have the endurance in the structures to maintain an upright posture, you're going to put load on areas that are not meant to take this excessive load. Mm-hmm. And those facet joints with the mechanoreceptors are not meant to take this excessive stress that we put with our body. We have gravity working against us, right? Yeah. Or with us. So we have to have a support mechanism that decreases the impact of gravity pressing constantly on our system.
So in order to summarize, when you are rehabilitating a knee or a spine, we really have to think that to be active, first of all, the person has to do exercises. So being active is really important. And I was reading some articles today, and they were talking about doing repetitive movement versus original movement. And that's the thing, I think it's a really interesting subject, because when we talk about original movements, that means movements with different directions, explore different kinds of movement versus doing the same thing over and over. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I think what we see in the exercise business right now is that one size fits all, you know? So we still see people doing, or trainers doing exercises that are, everybody gets the same thing. I just had a client come to me and says, you know, I just entered this class. The other people has been in the class for a year, yet they expected me to use the same weight to do the same workout that everybody else is doing. What I mean, without having a gradual increase in a gradual propagation of her activity, a gradual increase in her load and the volume. Repetitive exercise can be an issue, especially if it's done in the wrong way, if the technique is bad. For me, doing any type of activity, the technique has to be right. If the technique is wrong, the body will adapt, but the body will only adapt so much, and then it's going to give in. And when it gives in, that's when you have problems. So people who are doing certain types of activity or certain types of exercise where it works for one person, it doesn't necessarily mean that that type of exercise is going to work for that person, or that technique is going to work for that, because our body structures can be a little bit different. We have a little bit different range of motion here. We have a little bit different activation pattern here. So we have to look at every individual case. So I am for individualizing activity or exercise for different people or for clients, individualizing the program and looking at the pattern of behavior and focusing on the appropriate technique. We also know that doing varied type of exercise, different angles, different velocity of movement is very important. If you're a sports specialist, soccer, or you're a runner, or you play tennis, then we can specify the exercise based on the sport for that individual. A tennis player, for example, has a lot of eccentric loading. They have a lot of braking. So we have to design things for them that give them that capacity to brake. And that's after they have a base of fitness. Everybody needs a certain base for fitness. Once you have that, then you have to kind of specify and be specific as to how you design the exercise program. So I don't know if I'm addressing your question properly, but repetitive exercise, repetitive movements can be an issue and can cause overloading. We know that, which cause overuse, especially if the technique is wrong. So we have to be careful about that. Varying the exercise pattern is a very effective way of changing things up and giving the body different sort of stresses to work with, or load, as we call it. And those loads are good because we are multifunctional, omnidirectional being, right? So if our motive is just for general fitness, then you want to do several different things, and that's fine.
Yeah, and I think also we have to realize that, like I was reading this article, if you were doing a group with shoulder pain and another group without shoulder pain, and the both groups were doing a repetitive movement with their arm, okay, so then they realized that the healthy group without pain, the joint had much more variability when compared to the other group. That means that in a healthy joint, there's a lot of variability, and this variability we only achieve if we do exercise with different movement, with different stimuli, different directions. So that's important for us to realize. And trying to link this thing that you have said about being active, in Daniel Lieberman lecture, he was talking about plantar fasciitis, and he said that most of people that have this kind of problem, they do have that because their intrinsic muscles of their feet are weak.
He's totally right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we treat plantar fasciitis, is to get people to do exercises to strengthen the feet. Most people's feet are weak. And you know why your feet is weak? The feet are weak because we use shoes. Shoes are like a coffin. Shoes is like a cast, right? And that's why the barefoot shoes give you more variability, because your foot can move more in the shoes. But the people wearing high heels and these rigid shoes, they decrease muscular activity and your feet get weak. And all of a sudden, we start loading the foot. And we start loading the foot. And usually plantar fasciitis develop, especially when the shoes start to break down. So we no longer have the support of the shoe. Now our foot has to work very hard. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, yes.
So you have support all along. You have the shoes is giving you support. Your foot is not getting any exercise anyway, but you have support. So you have an artificial support. Mm-hmm. As soon as that artificial support breaks down, you start having problems, because what? Your foot has now to work. You have to use the muscles and the joints. The foot has 26 bones in there, 14 muscles, and numerous ligaments. It's a dynamic system. It's a system that's supposed to move. And the reason it's designed like this is because we're not designed to walk on flat surfaces. We're designed to walk over rocks and stones and walk in mud and climb trees. This is the way we're designed. So when we take our feet and we put it into a structure that doesn't give it any room to exercise for 14, 15, 20, 30 years, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
So barefoot, if you go and you follow the people in my village, I come from a village, right, in Dominica. Plantar fasciitis, when I was growing up, I never heard people talk about foot pain. I didn't know about plantar fasciitis when I grew up. But when I went to medical school, I understood what plantar fasciitis is. And when I go back and I play the movie backwards in my brain, I said, but I never used to hear people talk about foot pain. Nobody talked about foot pain. People talk about spraining their knees, you know, maybe straining their back, but nobody had foot pain. And all the kids that I knew who were barefoot, they never had plantar fasciitis, and they run, they play, they did all this kind of stuff. Now I have people who work in an office coming in with plantar fasciitis because they're walking on hardwood floors, they wear shoes all day, so their feet are weak. So he's totally right. It's about weakness. So we can go and treat this. We can put anti-inflammatories, all of this stuff. That's just temporary. It does not address the problem. What addresses the problem is that we need to develop strength. It comes all the way back to support. The body is designed to support itself. You see what I'm saying? That's why we have the myofascial system. That's why we have that tensegral system, is to support itself. When we remove pieces of that support system, we end up with dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
And the dysfunction is, it will lead to pain. It will lead to extra stress on structures that are not designed to take that kind of stress. Then we have pain. Because plantar fasciitis also is caused by a torsional stress. As your foot gets weaker, you have torsional stress developing. So it's like taking your hand and twisting it like this 1,000 times. You're gonna have problems.
Mm-hmm. So less shoes is much better for us, in fact.
Definitely, especially high heel shoes. You need shoes that are allowing your feet to work. And I started doing that myself many years ago, wearing shoes that allow my feet to move, because I have terrible feet. I have bunions and stuff, which is part of genetics. I think I have the same feet. My mom has the same. And so I have to be careful in terms of the type of shoes I wear. And when I was younger, I was trying to be fancy and wearing all these fancy shoes and realized, holy smoke, this is damaging my feet. Because once I get rid of those, I'm able to manage my feet, exercise, and do the things that are necessary to maintain the destruction that I caused when I was young and stupid.
Well,
so I always comment on my patients' feet. The first thing I look at the shoes, they come and says, "You get rid of the shoes, otherwise you're wasting your money to see me." Yeah. Because it doesn't make sense. The problem a lot of the time is the type of shoes people are wearing. Shoes are like coffins.
Yeah.
They kill your feet.
You're right. Talking about tensegrity, let's talk about your symposium. Okay, here's the flyer.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, everybody knows that WILBOUR is participating in a symposium in Vancouver, Canada next year, March 29th till 31st. And the name of the symposium is Biotensegrity. And it's going to be practical, right?
Most of the symposium is going to be practical, as we have about an hour and a half of lecturing in the morning, presenting research and presenting some clarifications and reasoning for why we're doing what we're doing. And then the rest of the day is going to be a practical presentation in terms of looking at how we manage different conditions using the concept around tensegrity, how we do certain exercises. And we have 5 presenters. 2 of the presenters will be doing the research and the sort of theoretical concepts around fascia and tensegrity. Dr. Robert Slipe and Dr. Stephen Levin, Dr. Stephen Levin is the godfather of biotensegrity. Robert Slipe is one of the world-renowned researchers from the University of Rome, from the Fascia Research School, and has been a researcher for many years in fascia research. And Robert is known for his excellent work, and he's an excellent speaker. And then we going to have John Sharkey, who is a clinical anatomist and physiologist, who's going to be doing his presentation and talking about chronic pain and using exercise to manage chronic pain. He's going to take you through a walk of anatomy and touch and feeling and what to look for in structures. Then there's Joanne Avison, who is a Pilates and a movement, a body movement worker, and she's going to be talking about Pilates and yoga from a biotensegrity concept in terms of applying biotensegrity to Pilates and yoga. And she's really going to Joanne work is incredible in the way that she sees things. And if you look at her book, yoga and fascia, it's a well-written text, and the references are incredible. And she really understands the concepts around tensegrity and fascia and how it relates to body movement. And she's going to bring that element into stillness and how we can use those concepts in our practice in looking at yoga and Pilates with the twist of the principles of biotensegrity. Myself, I'm going to be looking at functional movement and assessment and training in terms of exercise and biotensegrity. again, using the principles of biointegrity to augment the architectural design, the fascial architectural design of the body. And why are we doing things certain ways, and why do we get results, and why we don't get results? And we're going to be looking at that from the conceptual sense of function. So the workshop is very practical. After the morning lectures, the rest of the morning is going to be the practical session. Have lunch, then the afternoon is also going to be a practical session.
Okay.
And we design it this way in order to sort of apply, to show people how can you apply these concepts that we learn about fascia, the concepts we learn about biointegrity, to your practice. Mm-hmm. And why, what explanation, what are the explanations that we have why certain things we do work. So we want to share that with you, and we want to share those concepts.
You know, last week I was with some friends and they were asking about the symposium. And what I feel is that most of the people are very worried because when we go to a congress, everything is so theoretical. And then we arrive at home and we think, okay, so let's put this in practice. So the good thing about your symposium is that you guys are doing this bridge between the research and the practical stuff. And that's really important because that's what we need. And that's what is gonna help us in our studios, in our office, with our patients. So I really recommend it because you guys are doing this bridge between the theoretical stuff and then the practical stuff.
Well, yes, that's what we want to do. We want to tie in the theoretical with the practical. We know that we have to have some scientific base for the things that we do. And the concept around biointegrity can be so beautifully applied to a lot of the things that we do. And if you understand the principles of biointegrity, you can design programs for your clients. You can design, you can modify your examination based on the presentation of the symptoms that your clients are bringing towards you. So the whole idea here is to use this venue to sort of bridge that gap, to make it very applicable, right? We want to apply the concepts of biointegrity. We want to apply the concepts of the clinical anatomical concepts of fascia to our practice. And that's what we're going to be doing at the workshop, is taking those pieces and putting them together. That says, you know what, this is how you, because you had weak muscles, and because of the design of the foot, and because of the whole tensegral nature and how the foot and the architecture of the foot, we need to do these kind of things. And this is why this works, and this is why this doesn't work very well, because it does not fit within those principles appropriately. So the practicality of it is going to open up also for people to bring in their own experience.
Yeah.
Hey, this works for me. I've been doing this for years. Okay, well, you know why this works? Here's the reason why it maybe works, because this is the information we have right now. Because I used to do a lot of things in practice, and it used to work, and I don't know why it works, but it doesn't fit what I learned, but it's working, so I'm doing it, and I'm not causing any harm. So now I have explanation for those things. So now I can improvise on them. I can make them even better. I don't feel scared to venture out and create new concepts and new exercises and modify things. You see, when you have knowledge, it gives you power. It empowers you to be creative.
Yes, that's true.
And this is what we want to use the information in this workshop to do, is to empower us to be creative, so that we're not scared of trying different things, of modifying our approaches to rehabilitation, modifying our approaches to examination, modifying our approaches to clinical management and prescription of exercise. We have the knowledge. The knowledge is there. If you attended the Fascia Congress, my gosh, the presentations were just, you know, explained a lot of things, give us a lot of reason. You know, Neil's lecture gave a lot of reason in terms of the matrix and what's going on. You know, it's very important. You know, Dr. Swartz's lecture in terms of what's happening in the cells and the behavior gives you the sort of down to the microscopic level what's happening in the cells, what's happening in the matrix of our system. So we have to now take that and apply it. If we don't apply this knowledge, then it doesn't make much sense having it.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I think it's very valuable that people can exchange experience, because I think that's a brilliant way for us to learn new techniques, share our experience. I think that's really great. So if we're coming to an end, so let's just inform people, like if you guys want to go to this symposium, you can get more information at biotensegrity.ca, right?
Biotensegritycanada.com. Biotensegritycanada.com. That's where you can get all the information on the practical symposium, March 29th to 31st.
Okay.
Biotensegrity. Come down to Canada. We would love to have you, and we'd love to share what we have, and we want you to share with us what you have, because we know there's a vast lot of knowledge out there. There's a lot of people doing a lot of great stuff, and I think we need to connect.
Yep.
That's how we learn. We need to connect.
I love what you just said. If we have knowledge, we have power to be creative. That is so true.
Yes, yeah. This is why when I got this idea and I sat and I talked to Joy, I said, we need to try this. We have to try this. We got the knowledge. It's there. We've been to all the lectures. We need to now share this stuff, because I put the way that I use these concepts to design my programs, to do it changes the way that you look at things. So we need to encourage people to start doing that. The information is there, right? And we have the knowledge. We know to have to get creative. We now have to venture out and be a little bit more adventurous, that we're not scared of trying things. Because we understand, if we understand the basics and we understand the principles, we can apply those principles. We don't want that. For me, designing programs is not a cookie system where every cookie looks the same. All right, we blend all different situations. The body is not linear, so we can't go thinking that way. We have to change our concepts of how we think.
Yeah. Well, WILBOUR, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to
thank you
again. And you know what? It will be great if we could get an interview with Joanne. Please help me with that, so people get.
Okay, I will.
Because then people get to know Joanne too, who will be there. I see her.
Yes, I will.
I see her book in the back over there in your shelf.
Yes, that's right. That's a book right there in the back. That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Well, thank you.
I got John's book. I got Carlos Steckel's book.
Yeah, I can see everything there.
Bo's book. I got Robert's book, or the book that I contributed to is Robert Fascia and Sports. I got all the Fascia books right there in the background. Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, WILBOUR. I will definitely be there, and we're gonna inform this to all the Brazilians, so they will also have the opportunity to go there.
Welcome, Brazil. Come to Canada. Biotensegritycanada.com. Peace.
Thank you. Bye, WILBOUR. Have a great weekend.
I will. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.